Let me ask you something that might shake your soul not just for a moment, but for the rest of your life. Have you ever paused everything around you, silenced the noise of your routine, and asked yourself, why am I not living the life I always dreamed of? Why is it that even after doing every single thing they said would lead to success, you still feel stuck? You went to school, didn't you? You followed the rules. You raised your hand, waited your turn, recited the answers they fed you. You brought home the grades, posed for the graduation photos, shook hands in a ceremony that was supposed to unlock your future. You did all that, and still here you are, waking up to an alarm clock you despise, dragging yourself through days that feel more like obligation than opportunity. You're living in a home you can barely afford, working in a job you don't love, surrounded by voices telling you to be grateful when deep down you know something is off. Let me say something that might sound radical, but is rooted in deep, loving truth, the reason 6% of people will never be rich, and by rich, I don't just mean in money, I mean in freedom, in choice, in peace, in purpose, is because they are caught inside an illusion. A trap, a masterfully constructed lie. A lie that began when you were barely able to speak. A lie wrapped in textbooks and standardized tests. A lie that felt safe because everyone else believed it too. It's not because you lack intelligence. It's not because you don't work hard. It's not because you're lazy or unlucky. No, beloved, it's because you were trained, not taught, trained to obey a system that was never meant to free you. It was meant to use you. That system is called the education trap, and it is one of the most well-hidden, deeply embedded illusions of modern society. Take a deep breath with me right now. This is not a conversation about shame. This is a conversation about awakening. Let's walk through history for a moment, not from a textbook, but from the lens of truth. The education system that most of us were raised in was created during the Industrial Revolution. That era needed workers, not visionaries. It needed compliance, not creativity. So they built a school system that mirrored a factory. Desks in rows, bells that rang, repetition, obedience, memorization. They didn't want you to question. They wanted you to conform. They didn't want you to think. They wanted you to replicate. You were taught how to memorize facts you forgot after the test, not how to make sense of the world. You were taught how to wait your turn, not how to lead. You were taught how to get a job, not how to create one. They didn't teach you about money. They didn't teach you about emotional mastery. They didn't teach you how to build wealth, influence, or impact. Because if you knew how to do all that, you wouldn't need them. And that was the threat. Let's be clear, education isn't the enemy, but incomplete education, that's the silent killer of dreams. It teaches you how to be a cog, but never how to be the architect. And when your soul begins to stir, when you feel that quiet nudge that says, there's more for me, the system responds by injecting doubt. Don't risk your future. Stick to the plan. Play it safe. But here's the truth. The plan they gave you was never designed to set you free. It was designed to keep the machine running at your expense. The greatest breakthroughs don't come from following the map. They come from making one. You were born to create, not conform. From the very beginning, you were told, do well in school, get good grades, find a stable job, and you'll be okay. But who decided that okay was the goal? Let's unpack that. The world told you to aim for just enough, to settle for security over significance, to prioritize a steady paycheck over a powerful purpose. They didn't teach you about money, they taught you to fear it. They didn't show you how to invest, they told you to save just enough to survive. They didn't encourage your curiosity, they boxed it inside outdated textbooks and rigid curriculums. And the worst part, they taught you to be afraid of failure. But let me tell you this with all the love I can muster. Real wealth, the kind that transforms generations, lives on the other side of fear. You cannot stay small and expect a big life. You cannot play safe and expect extraordinary rewards. The wealthy didn't get there by chance. They got there by intention. They took risks, not reckless ones, but calculated ones. They studied wealth, building the way others studied history. They invested in themselves, in their skills, in their ideas. And most importantly, they shifted their mindset. They stopped trading time for money and started building systems that made money flow to them. That knowledge isn't reserved for the elite. It's available to you. But you have to unlearn what they taught you. You have to decide that okay is no longer enough because your life was meant for abundance, not just survival. Do you remember when you were a child and you would dream without limits? You wanted to be everything: an astronaut, an artist, a superhero, a dancer. You created worlds in your mind. You asked questions that made adults pause. But somewhere along the way, you were told to stop. To stop imagining, to stop daydreaming, to stop asking too many questions. You were told to be realistic. And that's when it happened. Your imagination began to shrink. Your spirit began to dim. Your originality was traded for approval. The system, though full of well-meaning people, was built to mold you into predictability. But the truth is, every wealthy and impactful person you admire was once labeled a dreamer, a rebel, a rule breaker. Creativity isn't just a nice idea. It's a wealth-building force. In today's world, the most valuable assets are ideas, not labor. The most successful people are those who can imagine solutions, innovate systems, disrupt the norm. And yet, our education taught us to color inside the lines. So now, it's your job to reclaim your crayons, to give yourself permission to think big, to trust that your ideas matter, to know that creativity is not childish, it's divine. You were born to create, to build, to express, to shape the world around you. The moment you embrace that, your life begins to shift. Let's take a moment to reflect on something most people never question. Why were you praised for giving the right answer but rarely encouraged to ask the right question? Why did they reward you for memorizing but never for imagining? Why were you applauded for compliance but punished for curiosity? Because the system wasn't built to make you a thinker. It was built to make you a follower, and I say that not with anger, but with clarity, with compassion. Because when you see the truth, you finally gain the power to rewrite the script. Let me tell you what I know to be true. Obedience is not the same as wisdom. You can follow every rule, pass every exam, graduate with honors, and still never live a life of your own, because knowledge without thinking is just noise. It's not wisdom, it's not transformation, it's not power. You were trained to value external validation, the teacher's praise, the report card, the degree on the wall, more than your own internal voice. And that's the tragedy, because the voice inside of you, your intuition, your insight, your ideas, that is where your greatness lies. But the system didn't make space for that voice. It taught you to suppress it. Don't question authority, stay in your lane, just follow the curriculum. And slowly, without even realizing it, you forgot how to trust yourself. You started looking outward for answers that could only be found within. But here's the breakthrough, my beloved. You are allowed to think for yourself. You are allowed to question the rules. You are allowed to choose a different path, even if no one else understands it. Critical thinking isn't rebellion, it's liberation. It's what every great leader, every innovator, every change maker has done. They challenged the narrative, they examined the assumptions, they asked, what if there's another way? And you can too. The people who rise, the ones who build wealth, impact, legacy, they don't just absorb information. They interrogate it. They don't just follow the world, they reshape it. So today, give yourself permission to think beyond the script. Not because you have to prove anything to anyone, but because you owe it to the life you haven't yet lived, because your freedom, your abundance, your joy, they don't lie in obedience. They lie in the power of your mind. Fully awakened, fully alive, and unapologetically free. Let's go deeper now into a truth that may be hard to admit, but it is necessary if you are to rise. From a young age, you were taught to seek something that looked like love, but was actually control. You were conditioned to chase approval from parents, from teachers, from bosses, from society. You were taught to color within the lines, not because it made sense to you, but because someone else said it was right. You were taught to sit quietly, raise your hand, follow instructions, not to question what those instructions were building toward. You were graded on how well you repeated what you were told, not on how well you understood the world or yourself. And so you learned to silence your own voice in favor of theirs. You learned to doubt your intuition. You learned to trade truth for applause. But let me remind you, gently and boldly, approval is a drug. And the more you rely on it, the more you forget how to breathe without it. Beloved, no amount of external validation can fill the ache of internal disconnection. The system didn't want you to think freely because free thinkers are powerful. It didn't want you to speak your truth because truth is disruptive. It wanted you to blend in because standing out makes you impossible to control. But here's what the system could never erase: that quiet flame inside you. That deep, ancient knowing that says, I was not made to please. I was made to live fully, honestly, unapologetically. Truth is not loud. It doesn't scream, it whispers. And when you stop chasing gold stars and start listening inward, you'll hear it again. So let this be the moment you stop waiting for approval from your past, from your culture, even from your family. Let this be the moment you crown yourself and say, I trust my truth, even when it goes against the grain. Because true freedom begins when you no longer need permission to be yourself. Now hear me when I say this: the moment you stepped out of that classroom, your real education began, but nobody told you that, did they? They made it seem like once you held that degree, once you walked that stage, you were done learning, done growing, done questioning. But life, real life, doesn't hand out diplomas. It hands out tests with no warnings. It teaches through failure, discomfort, loss, and awakening. It doesn't grade you with letters. It grades you with outcomes. And here's what most people miss. The most successful, fulfilled, and wealthy people in this world are lifelong learners. They don't stop when school ends, they start. They devour books no one assigned. They learn skills no professor ever taught. They invest in mentors, in programs, in real life experience. They study the language of leadership. They learn how money works. They examine their beliefs, heal their wounds, and to live in survival mode. You were never meant to just get by. You were born to thrive, to expand, to create, to lead. And if no one ever told you this before, let me be the first. You have permission to rise. You have permission to want more. You have permission to rewrite the story, but don't wait for the world to give you a green light. Sometimes you have to break through the red light with tears in your eyes and fire in your belly and say, I am not here to fit in. I am here to break free. Let them call you crazy. Let them doubt your path. Let them misunderstand your silence. But don't you dare shrink. Don't you dare settle. Don't you dare surrender your light. Because the world doesn't need more perfectly trained robots. The world needs awake souls, bold spirits, trailblazers. And if you're listening to this, I believe with every cell in my being that's who you are. So rise, rise above the noise, Rise beyond the rules. Rise into the life you were always meant to live. Not tomorrow, not someday, today.